Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City of Farmers Branch study session for Tuesday, August 15th. I do want to make an announcement, first of all, that this evening on our regular agenda, item J1 is going to be tabled to a future date. So J1 will not be on tonight's agenda. Okay. So with that, we will start with our study session. And item A1 is discuss regular agenda items. Councilman Merritt.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think I have much except for item H2, which is on the consent related to the speed study for Valley View. In reading the materials provided, how much of Valley View are we looking to assess? And Omar, I guess you brought this to the request, so I don't know if I'm addressing the city manager or perhaps you.
Well, what I was hoping,
Experts there, but yeah.
Or-
what I was
here-
hoping for was for it to be actually, and I was going to bring this up during when I got to me, that I wanted it to exclusively be the Mercer Crossing section, because if you look at it, the speed limit out there is 10 miles per hour higher than the rest of the city across Luna, Valley View, and Mercer Parkway. So I was looking for that, and on here it looks like it's just Valley View Lane. So that's what I was asking for. And I was going to get to that during my section, but I wanted to answer your question.
Ryan Sauter, Director of Public Works. This study will actually include everything from the BNSF Railroad, which starts the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit zone, all the way to Mercer Parkway and the tollway, where the intersection is for
Okay.
President George Bush and Mercer Parkway.
Yeah, and I apologize if it's in the document. I didn't see it written like that, but I may have overlooked it.
That is the parameter of the study.
Okay. All right. And then in conversation, Ben, you and I had, this is unbudgeted funds, is that correct?
That is correct.
So is there an idea, Omar, perhaps that we would have a much broader look at traffic across the city, or is it just this particular? I'm trying to understand the delineation. And rather than doing it incrementally, we look at it holistically, because if you're gonna, we could look at speed limits along Marsh Lane. I mean, we could look at speed limits all across the city. So I think we need to look at it holistically rather than piecemealing it, in my opinion. But I would bring that to the city manager's attention. And so I'd wonder if you would consider perhaps withdrawing this and look at it in a study session to where we could all bring our concerns of where we have speed challenges or speed opportunities to level set, talk with police and fire, most likely police, along with Public Works. So I'd like to see if you'd be interested in addressing it in that manner.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. And I think we have a future agenda item where we talk about kind of speeding in neighborhoods and stuff like that. So we can certainly lump it in that one. Because I was going to wonder, I was wondering where Mercer Parkway and Luna Road, where that was going to be addressed. It sounds like that might be part of that overall goal as well.
So pull H2 for
Yeah,
future
that's fine.
discussion?
So we'll table H2.
Yes, being pulled for a future study session on a broader topic.
Appreciate that. Because I think we'd have an opportunity to hear quite a few scenarios that would raise further study. I think the rest will be in regular or public hearing. You've answered, Ben, you answered most of the questions I had previously in our one-on-one, so I'm good. Thank you very much, Mayor.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. Item H4. The legislative text talks about, this is an unbudgeted item of $74,000 that's going to be paid from the Photographic Light System Fund, Red Light Camera Fund. Can you just kind of summarize what that is and what maybe the balance of that fund is? And
Okay, as long as you don't hold me to specifics. But we have
probably 92,000 in it. We've got 80 encumbered for this. We actually have more that we're gonna pay for speed signs with. But the balance of the funds when we had red light cameras, and we could only use those funds to pay for specific things, and traffic control was one of those. And so obviously radars is a big part of traffic control, so we're legally able to use those funds for that. And so that's our intention.
Very good. Thank you.
Is that all?
1 second here. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Councilman Barrett?
Nothing this week.
Okay.
Good
Councilman
answered
Bennett?
everything in a one-on-one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Roman?
So I just have a question about H8. It sounds like it's not going to be able to change how we are treating or handling those agricultural properties. We're just aligning the language to be consistent with what might be coming, well, what is coming down the pipeline from the state. Okay, got it. That's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, very good. We'll move on to A2, which is discuss topics for the proposed fiscal year 23-24 budget meetings and related timing.
Good afternoon, Council. Tammy Zimmerman, Director of Finance. Okay, so officially, budget season has begun. And just to be warned, I'm going to be using some football analogies as we discuss this presentation, and just to kind of keep it fun. If you recall, we did our pre-game budget warm-up or our workshop at the City Council study session on July 11th. And we discussed possible themes for this next year budget cycle. Some ideas from other cities were nautical in nature. They were steady the course, right the ship, or full steam ahead. And ultimately, we decided that the City Council will be setting the vision and the tone for this future work plan of this budget, and in taking care of our Farmers Branch citizens and employees for this next fiscal year. So it's going to be a positive tone, but I'll still use this sport-related tone for tonight. Parts of this warm-up season opener on July 11th was a Budget 101, and we discussed fund accounting and referenced some tabs in your previous budget book. And you'll see right in front of you, I've provided a new budget binder, which has all the tabs that I'd like to kind of keep referencing over the next 2 months. And we actually have one of our special teams. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Another special teams. Thank you. We had our special teams, Dallas County Appraisal District, or DCAD, kind of fumbled the ball, but we quickly recovered. They put out some numbers that were incorrect, and they gave us a revised truth in taxation recertified values on August 3rd. So the first page of your budget binder has those new revised numbers. And that fumble that they did was related to their, they had a cyber attack back in November. So their software miscalculated something. So it also, in this new budget binder, there's a very back part where we go through the 9 pages of the truth in taxation calculations, and those have been revised as well based on the new recertified DCAD numbers. And we also printed out in larger font size all of our capital improvement project budgets for aging eyes, me especially. It helps. You'll notice on that front page of the budget book where I said there's a little bit of a revised number, from TNT, from the truth and taxation calculations, there's a second page that goes and explains the reconciliation of what we are required to report. It shows with our TNT calculations that we're getting a $9 million increase. And in actuality, it's only 2.7 because of some required numbers that they're not taking into consideration the property values that are in litigation or in appeal. And there's our TIF numbers as well. Okay, so the budget timeline. Remember back in that budget workshop, we talked about how the budget is a year-round process. Our fiscal year starts October 1st and runs to September 30th of each year. So we have, in October, we're really busy and wrapping up the fiscal year and implementing our newly adopted budget. And then we go to February, we start talking with the city council about our strategic initiatives and getting the direction for the departments to start putting in their budget. And we have in March the presentation of our audit. And we have April and May, we're reviewing all of our financial results to get maybe a revised mid-year budget, which we did do. June, we're meeting with the budget committee, and we're going over all of our numbers for the July 31st submittal of the proposed budget. So we did get, on the 25th of July, those Dallas County DCAD certified tax rolls. But again, we got revised numbers after that timeline. And we are, right now, we're sitting in August 15th, where I have on the agenda for tonight the proposed tax rate vote, which we'll put on a public hearing in September. And again, and I'll mention it again when we get to that agenda item, that's the maximum tax rate. It's not what we actually propose in this budget. Okay, so the season opener is tonight, and we're going to go and talk about this timeline and all of the fun game schedule that we have in front of us. So you'll see on August 22nd, right around here, we've got a placeholder for a possible special call to city council meeting where before our 29th budget town hall, we want to answer any outstanding questions that the city council might have and go over the formatting of what that town hall will be. September, we're busy. We've got public hearings and we've got ordinances where we adopt our tax rate, our fee schedules, and our revised current year budget, because we'll know closer to the end where we came in at, and then we'll adopt our next year, 23-24 budget. Okay, so we've had a few city council workshops. Again, we're on this next steps where we're gearing up for our budget town hall, our exhibition game. And that's where we really want our community input. We've put out on the website, we have a financial transparency page where we have the proposed budget, we've got the tax rates, we've got our quarterly financials, anything that you could possibly want and find, so that we are open and transparent with all of our numbers and all of our estimations. And we hope to have a good turnout for this budget town hall because we want to promote all the great things that are happening in the city of Farmers Branch. So we'll have our public hearing on September 5th, and then the tax rates will hopefully be adopted on our September 19th city council meeting. So budget themes, again, just tonight I'm using these football analogies. I will put them to rest quite quickly. But what I want to talk about is the positive themes that we have built in to this proposed budget. And that was a 2-cent tax rate reduction, which is the largest in 40 years. We also have, in addition to our public safety personnel, we have advanced funding of our capital improvement projects, our CIP, which we're using excess sales tax revenue to get us ahead and not have to go out and get debt funding for all these large capital projects. It keeps a low debt ratio. We have increased fleet and facility funding, and the aging infrastructure of our buildings and our vehicles. We wanted to help those funds along with the inflation, with the increased backlog in our supply chain. And then we set up at the mid-year budget, we set up a revenue stabilization fund, which we think this is a great tool. It's a model for keeping the volatile sales tax revenue, the excess, put into this revenue stabilization fund, and it's preserving our AAA bond rating. And we talked about in the budget workshop that with our unassigned general fund balance, where we have a policy where we target a 15 to 20% range, and that's what our bonding rating agencies look at. In practice, we want to put that into a number of days. It's more relatable to the citizens if you can say, we're going to have 90 days of emergency funding. And that's what we've tried to achieve with this budget. And then when we're planning for the town hall, I will kind of refer to Gerari, our chief of staff, for questions on, she's going to be setting that town hall up, and she will be providing a comprehensive overview of the budget and where there'll be opportunities for the citizens to ask questions and gain a better understanding of our budget process and what is been provided to keep the quality, excellent services that the city is known for. We want this budget to reflect all the community needs. There's a lot of demands. I know as city council members, you've been fielding bunches of questions on maybe tax rates or street maintenance or whatever it may be. And we want to give that opportunity for the citizens to ask those questions, and we can promote this budget and have your presence and involvement. So if you have questions on the town hall review, Gerari can answer any of those questions, and I can bring her up for that. But that's just the preseason warm-up. That's what I've got for tonight, and we'll do some more.
Very
Is there
good.
any questions?
Thank you. No, I want to remind everybody that we do have next Tuesday set aside for a budget review, Q&A with council. Since you're just getting your books today, please take some time between now and then, review what's going on, and then next week will be an excellent opportunity to sit, ask questions, and voice what's on your mind. Okay? Will everybody be able to make the town hall on the 29th? Okay.
I will be remote. We've already talked to city manager about that, and hopefully there'll be technology available for
Okay.
my participation.
Very good. Because that'll be important also, so I would encourage everybody to let their constituents know about the meeting on the 29th, invite them to come, ask questions. I will say, working with Ben, just from my own standpoint, thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for what you've done and what has been brought to our attention. Our goal, and my goal without any question, is that everything be done openly and transparently. If we're doing something, there needs to be a contract or some kind of formal agreement in place. We're not working on handshake deals or anything like that. Can't speak to what happened in the past, but that's the way we're moving forward. And I think that's for the protection of not only council members, the city, and the residents. So really appreciate that. So does anybody have questions for Tammy? Councilman Merritt?
No, she's gone over the material. We've had it presented to us previously. The 2 pages that up front are the adjustments, so we'll read that. And you clarified the table on page 2 talks about where the line item was 9 million, and then the math shows the adjustments accordingly to address it down to 2.7.
Correct.
So I just need to digest that, but you've got all the math is present here, so
Okay,
thank you.
good.
I have no questions, further questions at this time, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Jackson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tammy. I'm just wondering if we have any plans to put together like a one-page dashboard-like document that kind of captures the main parts of the budget for residents so that there's like one easy place that's.
The answer is absolutely yes. So there's going to be one overview document, but there's been several themes emerging. So if folks have a special interest in our debt rate or how we compare to other cities, there will be several one-pagers on different topics that seem to be of high interest, but there will be the one-page overview that clearly explains where we are, where we're going, and what the budget is doing.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You bet. Councilman Baird?
I'll have questions on Tuesday, I'm sure, but nothing today.
Okay. Councilwoman Bennett?
No, sir.
Councilman Roman?
What's a fumble?
If you review the Dallas Cowboys tapes,
Ouch.
Spoken like a true Eagles fan or something. I don't know what. You good?
I'm good, thank you.
Tammy, I have one question. And that is, I was really sort of surprised that we had $906 million worth of property in some form of litigation or contestment.
correct? Yes.
Or I don't know if that's the proper word, being contested. So do you have a feel for
That can
where
take
that
anywhere
might settle
from
out?
10 years to resolve. So it can take anywhere from 10 years to resolve some of
Wow.
those cases. So that's where we budget a specific percentage of actual property that's in appeal. But for those that are in litigation, it's very hard to determine what's actually going to be collected.
Okay. But as the city moves forward for those properties that are in appeal or whatnot, does the city collect any, or should the property owner either lose their appeal or settle? at
There's
some point?
penalties and
Does
interest.
the city collect any interest on that money?
Correct, yes. We have penalties and interest that is collected on those.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Tammy? All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is item A3, receive an update on mowing of private properties by the Parks and Recreation Department.
Put these on so I can see it. Let's see. Second one right there. There we go. All right. All right, thank you. All right.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. Kerry Phillips, Parks and Superintendent. I'm here today to talk to you about some private property that we've been maintaining through the years. There's some questions of, how did we get here? What was the deciding factors in maintaining these properties? And so where do we go now? There may be in the past some challenging questions on how, why, where, when, all these different things. But the history is pretty vague. I've been here a long time. So we've been maintaining these areas for a long time. There could have been some maintenance challenges in certain areas, awkward land situations, different things that come up. But the main concern for us now as the city is the liability of these properties. So within this, the liability for staff to go out and maintain these properties on private property, it's not a liability for the city, but it's a liability also for the property owner. In these areas, some of them are they're awkward situations. This right here is an example. I just wanted to put this in as an example. One property that we maintain, and it is some of the dividing lines, the property lines, and how they come across all the way across the creek. You can tell here. This is on Hollandale, and there's a lot of different properties that end up that way. Here's a list of the properties on the map, and then here's the list of the properties with the district map here of these 12 locations. You can see some are residential, some are state-owned, some are NTTA, and some belong to the Dallas Independent School District. The bottom line with all these properties is that there are 12 locations. It takes approximately 267 man-hours and almost $73,000 a year in labor, equipment, irrigation, and maintenance cost for this. It's a huge cost to the city and staff. Potential solutions for this: we can discontinue maintaining these private properties, notify the owners, and give them a 60-day notice when we can pull out this, and then they become responsible for those properties that need to be maintained. Pretty simple, straightforward. I wish I had some football terms to give and some different things, but it's a pretty simple, straightforward process of what it is. Any questions?
Any questions, council?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Have we talked to the property owners before today related to this?
I have not.
Okay.
Done a lot of research. There were some particular properties, to let you know, Councilman Merritt, that there were some properties that were in question that I went back through. I've done a pretty extensive search on this, and I did find a couple of properties that were on Fike, that there were deals back in like 1976, that the city purchased a 70 square foot piece of property off the backside of a house. And so there were some things like that. I wanted to make sure that we went through this before it was presented.
I do also see that there's some situations to where perhaps it's just the easements that abut to city property. I'll look at south of Hollandale, and Omar, I believe this is in, between you guys, I haven't figured out which one it is yet. But where we address the drainage channel,
Yes.
and then it's the easements, are we just mowing up to the easements, to the fences that are there? And we've seen this in the past, that sometimes fences are placed not on the easement lines.
Correct.
Property lines. So are we dealing with much of that in this particular situation?
I will say in some situations, let's take the Cooks Creek drainage easement, where the property, where we're looking at dividing the property line is, we still maintain the bottom tier in what we're looking at, because the property line, a lot of them go across the creek.
Correct.
So we would maintain the bottom tier and just have them maintain the top tier. Because the way that they are, and because of some of the way some of the fences are, our guys have to pick up a lawnmower and put it on there and then climb up the wall and get up there and mow it. So there is a situation there for, potential injuries.
Sure.
And things like that that we're trying to, alleviate.
Okay. I think it's an interesting conundrum that we've gotten into. And so I think it's interesting that we're trying to unravel it, but I want to make sure that we do it broadly and not just in these. And we also have had the long-term, mowing alleyways. And so there's some of this that overlaps and gets into some odd outcomes, in my opinion. So interested to see how we if it's just a cease, if you will, of this, we don't do this any longer, and how do we address that? So I'm interested in kind of the next step of implementation of addressing whatever direction is coming out of this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Kerry. I'm supportive of us not mowing other people's property. But in agreement with Councilman Merritt's comments, where we have some alleys right now where there's been this long dispute as to who's responsible for mowing and who owns it, utility access, those kinds of issues. And I understand that those are a little bit different technical concerns than maybe some of these properties we have here. But at the end of the day, if the city's not responsible for mowing these properties and someone else is, then effectively we're shifting the responsibility of enforcement now over to code enforcement, right?
Right.
And just looking at the list of the property owners here, you know, Dallas, DISD, NTTA, the state. I mean, we've not been able to get TxDOT to keep our service road clean,
Right.
you know, by 6:35. And so I have concerns about enforcement. Not saying that let's keep mowing it because we can't make somebody else do it, but I think we need to work through some of those concerns and make sure that we have a plan for these folks being responsible for their property. And we include that consideration in our enactment.
Okay.
That's all.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Bear.
I don't think so.
I'm
Thanks.
going to echo what Councilman Jackson said, because they need to know when you send them the letters, what our expectations are and what we intend on doing
Correct.
if they don't,
Yes.
since we have zero control over
Right.
some of them.
Right, and he had, correct, Councilman Jackson said it perfectly. TxDOT, the state, we have spoke with them numerous times and trying to get things done, and that is a tough one. Now, I will tell you, to explain a little bit on Ford Road, as far as I understand, years ago, because when we started doing our events at the historical park, that last portion, the south end portion of Ford Road, Dallas was not maintaining. And for Farmers Branch and our expectation, I believe that is how we took that over. And then we started maintaining it because of our events that were going on. And we wanted it to look good for our patrons coming in. And again, we know the city of Dallas is not Farmers Branch. So you're right, that is another challenge that we have right there.
Councilman Roman.
So I agree that there needs to be a good communication plan with the individuals who are going to be now responsible for maintaining their properties. I'm certainly supportive of what you've presented and us not having to be responsible for that. Also, I think we need a, like we've all said, there needs to be a very clear expectation that they're responsible for maintaining those properties now for their own properties and what the consequences would be, and then leveraging code enforcement when necessary.
Thank you.
So I have some thoughts I'd like to share on this. So I've received calls from a couple of owners of property that were in affected areas, let's say. Don't know when all this started or how it came about. We do need to make sure, and let's just talk about easements, for example. Number one, easements are, whether it's a utility easement, and let's say it's between two fences, as many properties have, that's still private property.
Correct.
That is the owner's responsibility to maintain that property. There are many homes that have easement areas behind their homes or around their homes someplace, and they don't have a gate to get to it. That's not our problem. That is the homeowner's issue to take care of private property. And we had a lot of discussion about this with the Hilkemas when they were here and lived in the city, because they had the same thing behind their property. There seems to be some issues regarding property along Longmead and Executive Circle, two in particular. Executive Circle has a median in the middle of the street.
Correct.
Okay. A property owner asserts that that is not showing on his deed. Okay? Well, if it's not owned by a private entity, then it must be owned by the city. And if it's not showing as owned by the city, then we need to probably change whatever registered paperwork to show that that's a city piece of property.
Okay.
Okay. Areas in the back along the back of Executive Circle, Longmead area, seem to be in a bit of, there's a bit of contention about that. And I guess I would like to be better informed before we take formal action. I do plan to go and see it. I'd be happy to tour with you. I'd be happy to visit with homeowners and explain what's going on. But I think we really need to see this and identify the specific areas. And then, from that, we send each of the affected homeowners a communication so they know what's going on. Because things have been going on differently for so long, I don't want to take anything for granted.
Right.
I want to make sure we do it the right way. We state what the policy is. We inform them. And there's no room for misunderstanding.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm happy to do that. And then if there are other properties within the city that we're maintaining, that the owner entity does not want to maintain, then we should ask them if they want to deed that property to the city of Farmers Branch.
Okay.
DISD, for example, needs to be responsible for their own property. And if they don't want to take care of the field back there, then they can deed that property to the city and we'll use it for something else. And I think that makes sense. If TxDOT doesn't want to take care of some of their property, they can deed it to the city. Then we have a reason to take care of it. But right now, we're doing their work, which is not fair to our taxpayers.
Agreed.
So those are my comments. Anything else? All right.
Just to clarify for actions from staff then, so we're going to get the list of the properties to the council members, so those of you that have it in your district can maybe make that personal touch, working with the mayor, with the whole city, reaching out to the residents. Basically, because of the timeline, we're near the end of the growing season, it's going to happen quickly where you don't have to do as much yard maintenance, so this is more of a spring next year, feel the effects of this change, but it sounds like that's the direction we're going, is we're comfortable moving forward, but we need to have proper notification and reach out to our residents. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, but I think we'll go back to what Carrie mentioned before. There are a couple of situations here where we may need and may want to maintain things going forward. So I don't want it to be a blanket statement
Okay.
that everything presented we're not doing because it's private. We need to look at this in some situations. Tom Field is an example where we maintain the median, but we're not maintaining the
Right.
adjacent to the back. It might make sense that we still do some of this in order to keep the aesthetics appropriately maintained. It just doesn't make sense to do one and not have the other. Now, there are plenty of things in here, in my opinion, that, two alleys that are in Castleton neighborhood there. That's
That is a huge undertaking.
correct. And it goes back to the question that I raised before. We have other alleys that we're not taking care of. And so how is this all unpacked, if you will, between Encore and the owners, et cetera? I think there's still some unwinding that has to happen
Yes.
before we set a direction, emphatically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed. And there may be extenuating circumstances. Who knows? We don't know. But in simplest terms, we need to explain to property owners, what is your property? And an easement is on private property. So a utility has an easement on your property. They don't own your property. They're not responsible for maintaining your property.
Correct.
So we may have to go back to the very basics with some of these folks.
We haven't taken action on the alley easements and the mowing, because I know that there are multiple utilities with access and requirements and contracts and such, but I think if we're going to address this, we need to address that too and try to bring all of this to a close because it's kind of been outstanding for a while.
Back to a holistic approach,
Right.
all of it.
Right, yeah, and also, just to make sure folks are aware, that list of owners, there are residents on that list as well as state and school and other authorities, and so I think the application needs to be fair, but residents certainly deserve to hear from us.
Absolutely. We want to do the right thing by our residents.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on that? Very good. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Next up, item A4, discuss event center rental fees. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and revisit the schedule of proposed pricing structure for the Event Center with you today. First and foremost, we understand the Event Center is a revenue-generating entity and financial sustainability is definitely a fundamental goal. Transparency in our pricing and our communications with the event organizers, potential clients, and the community, as well as you, the City Council, is definitely vital to us. Our pricing structure will be clearly outlined and accessible to allow us to foster trust and confidence in our approach of doing business. We have provided detailed pricing spreadsheets to each of you that further outline updated pricing and amenities information for the venues listed in the business plan, as well as an additional approximately 48 other like venues near Farmers Branch that are closely knitted to our event center plan. And in updating that spreadsheet with the amenities such as linens, security or police requirements and fees, and base fees for weekday rentals if they have been provided. And in further evaluating the pricing structures of our competitors, assessing anticipated operational costs, market trends, and competitive landscape, as well as consultation with an independent third party, it's important for us to offer introductory or limited time grand opening pricing. And that would be just for a very specific grand opening period. The introductory pricing would position us favorably within the industry while letting us stay competitive. So the pricing itself will be reevaluated after a set period of time so we can analyze actual hard data that has come in that we've gained after operating to public, as well as location, convenience, industry trends, and economic conditions. And then after that, regular analysis of the data will enable us to remain competitive and safeguard our financial sustainability. So all of that being said, just to review real quickly, since you guys all visited this last month, we did update our business plan in September of '22. We engaged Wheelhouse Innovations for further comparative analysis as well as helping us with our pricing structure. And then y'all saw 3 venues that were very similar to what we have in mind for our event center and their pricing. And then just to recap, we have the large-scale wedding and celebrations package. If they want a complete package, which includes use of the historic structures at the historical park, a Friday, Saturday would be $7,500, and then a Sunday would be $6,000. If they choose not to use the historical structures and they just want to use the event center in the meadow, we have that package as well, and for a Friday, Saturday would be $5,500. Or $4,500 for a Sunday. And either package, whichever way they choose to go, would include both of these sections of amenities and accessories that are outlined there. The next one would be the corporate and social large-scale gatherings, be it luncheons, trainings, team building events. We would have two different prices. You could do a half day for 4 hours, or you could do a full day for 8 hours. The half day would be $2,000, and the full day would be $3,500. And each one would include everything that's listed there as well. And then the final option is for our small meeting or conference room. So if you are a teleworker or you just have a small independent company and you need to borrow a conference room, this would be a great package for you. It takes advantage of our Monday through Friday timeframe. You have the option of 4 hours or a half day for $1,000, and it would include our conference room as well as our serving area and our prep kitchen. Any questions?
Council, any questions? Mayor?
I'm comfortable with where you've addressed the concerns that I think the council had brought to you when you made this last presentation. So I think I'm comfortable with where we're at. I understand the introductory pricing. Is there a recommendation that it's 6 months, a year, 18 months? What is the best guess at that introductory period that you have?
Best guess would be within that first year.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it'll allow us to gain some hard
Sure.
data to be able to evaluate and analyze.
Understood. No other further questions, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Jackson?
Thank you, man. This is good. I think we've discussed this ad nauseum. So I'm comfortable with where we are. The one thing that I think that would be good to add to the spreadsheet, and I see that there are some notes on some venues, but, you know, the capacities in this grid. Because I think it'd be good, especially for our marketing team, to know who precisely are we competing with.
I have another spreadsheet that lists all the capacities for the venues.
Excellent, excellent. Love to hear it. Thank you.
Councilman Beard?
I may have missed this previously. Are we offering any kind of discount for residents?
There is a possible 5% discount, but the one perk that we really want to emphasize for our residents is they will get an additional 30 days of booking time. So if we have, say, you can only book 12 months in advance, if you're a resident, you can book 13 months out in advance.
Okay, thank you.
So they'll get extra time.
Thank you for addressing all of our needs and our questions from last time.
Councilman Rowe?
I don't have anything, but I feel comfortable where we are now, and I appreciate you going back and doing a lot of the heavy lifting to get us the answers you were looking for.
My pleasure.
I just had a question, and obviously it goes to this initial debut period, if you will. Is the pricing policy for the debut period firm, or do you have any flexibility if in working with a client or an event company?
The plan is it's firm.
Okay, all right. Then regarding the cancellation policy, thought 90 days in my mind was a little long, and especially when I'm looking at refunds and whatnot. I wanted to see if you would be open to considering 60 days out. And if you even considered that, I'm not
Yes.
sure where 90 days came from. That's a long time.
It seemed long to me, but after doing research into not only the venues that are outlined in the business plan, but the additional venues, the 90 days kept popping up amongst a lot of them as far as that time frame. And I think most of it is allow them time to not only compensate for the fact that they are losing that business for that day, but it gives them time to also add in another event.
Okay. So shifting gears a little bit. We've identified that our operating expenses are about $227,500 per year.
Correct.
And revenue projections, obviously, for year one are going to be less than that, which you stated or projected. Year two projected less. Year three, you're about $220,000, so there's about a $17,000 delta there. I know it's hard to predict the future, but these are real expenses to the taxpayers
Correct.
of funding this delta. So in thinking about that, I'm thinking, okay, let's see how business goes in year one. Let's see how business goes in year two. I'd like to keep the door open for reevaluating the fee structure because the goal is to get that thing self-sustaining,
Absolutely.
okay? And not continue to run at a deficit every year, whether it's $10,000 or $30,000. I mean, so hopefully, as time goes on, we get periodic reports of what's going on. If we see the need to be more aggressive in pricing, we've got a fixed asset there.
Yes.
We got to cover the cost.
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure we're doing all we can and that we're not turning business away or pricing ourselves out of the market.
Understood.
So, anybody else?
Mayor, to that point, the historical park reports, is it quarterly to us? They report their revenues and expenses and
In the quarterly financial update? Twice a year.
twice a year.
You mean the
Semi.
Right, the board.
The board, okay, I
Right,
thought
the
you were
board,
financial
sorry.
update.
Board report.
So I'm wondering if it just makes sense that the,
But is the board overseeing this also, or is this entity separate from what the Historical Park Board does?
either way, the timing and report to the council, I think, could coincide with the Historical Parks Board on, expense and revenue and growth and activities in the historical park. At the same time, we get a report from staff on, how the event center's doing. So at least we have two stops during the year to take a look at utilization, expense, revenue, and that kind of thing.
Okay, but I guess I will, let me re-ask the question I just asked, is, does the Historical Park Board have authority over this facility, or is this considered a separate entity on the Historical Park grounds?
It is considered a separate entity.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Moving on, A6, receive an update from the Economic Development Director and Tourism Manager on the National Pickleball Tournament. Wait a minute.
You skipped 5.
Oh, you know what? Well, go ahead, since we called you. Go ahead.
Shane gets a reprieve for.
I'm sorry, I turned two tabs instead of one.
Okay.
So go ahead. I'll come back to you.
Skipped in front again. Okay, well, thank you for having us update y'all tonight. I know we've been talking about pickleball for a while, and we talked to the mayor and city manager about providing an update to the entire council of what we know as of today. So I hope y'all are as excited as we are. Myself and Meredith Dowdy will update you on all the facts. Oopsie daisies. Oh, I just went through the entire presentation. You got it? Okay. So we know it will be held at Brookhaven Country Club. We know it will be November 5th through the 12th, and it will be a ticketed event, meaning there is a website that we'll get to in a minute, and actually many people have gone and already bought tickets. But if you want to go, you must buy a ticket. the Brookhaven Country Club is the venue. I know most of y'all have been out to Brookhaven. Club Corp is now called Invited. So if you see the word Invited floating around, you might see it at different events. It's Club Corp. So Club Corp, Invited, owns Brookhaven Country Club. And the host is the PPA, the Professional Pickleball Association. So they are the host for this tournament. And here's just an aerial. I'm a visual person, so I know y'all know what it looks like, but here's just an aerial of the club. Parking will be provided at Dallas College at the Brookhaven campus, and the PPA is working with Dallas College at Brookhaven campus to provide the parking lots available at certain times with shuttles to run. They will be providing more detailed information that will be on a website, and we will circulate that when we have all the knowledge of that. But for now, we know that Brookhaven has allowed PPA to use their parking facilities, which is fantastic, because then a majority of the people coming can park their car there and be shuttled in very easily. You don't have to sit and wait in long lines. Uber, rideshare, there'll be a rideshare drop-off as well. And tonight, we weren't going to get into all the details of the parking scenario because we don't have all the details of parking. But when we do, I'll let you know. About the event, I'm going to let Meredith Dowdy come up and talk about this, and then I'll wrap it up with our communication plan.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'm Meredith Dowdy. I'm the tourism manager, and I've been kind of the liaison between the PPA and the city throughout their planning process. And so I just wanted to give a little bit update about what they're going to be doing out there, because while we all know there's going to be a huge tournament, what's actually happening? So it's going to be the largest pickleball event ever. So they're also going to have like the Guinness the Guinness Book of World Records out there. They're going to have entertainment. There's going to be amateur play, which is people that have qualified all over the nation. They run tournaments almost every weekend. They qualify and get invited to this tournament to play for the gold medal. So that's what the amateur play is going to be. And then they also have a pro play division. So they've got different professional players that play. There's different things every single day. So there's singles, there's doubles, there's mixed doubles. So they will be out there to play. They have a championship court that you can watch them on, and then amateur play will be all throughout Brookhaven. There will also be clinics available, so those will be open to the public. Those will be open to players that are playing. Some are taught by pros, some are taught by just PPA folks and USA Pickleball folks about technique and different levels and stuff like that. So that'll be really fun. And then they're also going to have entertainment. So they're working on 3 concerts, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. They're also working on a drone show and fireworks for those 3 nights as well. So each of them will be accompanied by 2 different entertainment options. And then they will also have Pickleball Boulevard is what they're calling it. And it will be a bunch of different vendors, sponsors, things like that. You can come out and get all the PPA attire that pickleball attire that you want, any paddle that you want. Everybody's going to be out there that loves pickleball. So they've got a lot of great vendors that will be out there as well. And then the other really cool thing for the tourism department is they have room blocks at 7 Farmers Branch hotels. So they are bringing in a lot of people from out of town. They'll be staying in our hotels. They'll be visiting our restaurants. They'll be purchasing gas at our gas stations. They'll be going to our grocery stores. So it's going to be great to have them in town. And then also, just so you guys know, if people are asking questions, USA Pickleball has a great website. I'm going to click on here. They've got all the information about what's happening, the tournaments. Where do we go? Okay. So here's all of their information, how to qualify, the FAQs, their schedule. They've also got to purchase tickets here, how to qualify. So if you guys have any questions, they've got all of the information about visiting here, getting here, staying here. So all of it is on the USA Pickleball website for residents or anyone else to, yep. So that's kind of the overview of what this is actually going to be. It's going to be really fun. We've gotten to work with them and see kind of all the different things they're bringing to Farmers Branch. And we have heard nothing but amazing things about pickleball. So if you haven't played, go try it. It's going to be really fun, and it's the new and upcoming thing. So thank you.
So for communicating with our residents and visitors alike, we'll have a communication plan with Jeff Brady and the tourism team and economic development. And as we get more information sorted by the PPA directly from the host, then we will put it in a form that we give to our residents through their existing channels now, social media, branch bulletin, and any other way. Maybe you'll do a video, probably more than likely. I feel like a video is coming. But as we have better information, basically the PPA needs about probably another month before it's all solidified. And in October, probably early October, we'd love to have a community meeting with residents, but anybody that wants to come. We'd like to have it at Brookhaven Country Club. We've sent an email to them to ask, but it may not be there, it may. And where and when will to be determined. But basically, we'd like to have an in-person meeting. I know Mayor and Councilmember Merritt, y'all mentioned y'all would like to see that, and that makes sense. And so we will do the typical outreach for that, and word of mouth outreach by the council will be helpful. And then we can lay all common concerns aside, such as, are they gonna park in my front yard? I don't know, maybe, probably not. We'll talk about it.
Okay. Good.
Do you have any other questions for me for pickleball?
Thank you,
I know
ladies.
we could talk about it all night, right?
So yes, we could. It's an exciting thing. This is going to be a really big deal. And obviously, neighbors in the Brookhaven area are going to have a lot of questions, especially about traffic management. We will address those at the proper time. So we are working on that. And this is going to be a really tremendous opportunity for our city to shine with so many visitors coming in. So
I agree.
questions, Councilman Merritt?
Do we have an idea on how many tickets they're selling per day? Because I visited the website, and you're correct. They have different days, championship courts, et cetera. Do we have an idea of what they're anticipating ticketing? The number?
Capacity per day, you
Yes,
mean?
ma'am.
I don't know their capacity number per day,
And
but I can find out.
I think that's something we'd like to know.
Okay.
So we understand. They're managing it from the front end, and we get that. So they have some level of expectation of what they could absorb on their particular
You wanna talk about the
property.
number?
So they have given us a little bit of an estimate. The weekdays are going to be smaller numbers than the weekend. Their biggest day is on Saturday. They're expecting about, I would say, around 5,000 people on Saturday. So the weekdays will be a little bit less than that. The ticketed events, Championship Court will only hold about 2,500 people. So for your concerts and your fireworks, that's going to be about the max number of people that will be there for those evening events. But throughout the day, they'll have probably that. But I would say they've told us about 5,000 max for the weekends.
I think that's very important, that we're not bringing 100,000
No.
folks here. And we have heard large numbers, like 35,000. We expect 5,000,
Yeah.
6,000
They're saying-
competitors, so
Yes.
you're going to have a mix of competitors out there and then people attending the event as well. So we need to have an idea and communicate that idea of how many people are going to be out there. Brookhaven is a big place to begin with. Are they still going to, is Brookhaven still expecting to operate normally?
They are.
Through
Yes.
that particular time? So we'll have that to
And-
compensate.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so golf will be open, and it's my understanding that there's a wedding on Saturday night
Well,
there.
everybody
So
be there then.
it just, this is
They
going to be
are.
a carnival atmosphere.
They're working on the parking plan and making sure that everybody's taken care of. So we're working together with Brookhaven Country Club and PPA and police.
So has PPA and Brookhaven talked about pickleball alley or pickleball avenue? Is that actually going to be on private property, or is that going to be in the roadway? And I think we need to, and I know more will come out as they get closer to refining this, but I think the earlier that we can communicate what the scope is better. And that's why I really wanted you guys to do this. So I have an idea what it'll be, but I know you guys are working, shoulder to shoulder with these folks and have had meetings. So please tell us what you know about pickleball.
Okay.
Or alley.
We do have a site plan that we were going to show, but it could change, so I didn't want to
Sure.
show it. So that's what I would like to wait a few more weeks, and when I have really solidified information, then I'll show it. Because if I show it now, it'll just look confusing. Because but, yeah.
Yeah, so generally, they're gonna be all within here. This is kind of their general site plan. They're gonna be all along here. They're gonna take over this and here and possibly a road shutdown there. But that's kind of their general vicinity.
And that's enough to show at this particular
Okay.
moment, in my opinion.
Okay.
That there is the concept of closing that particular roadway for this particular event over those days. So I think that's perfectly fine. And I think for many, as we look at this graphic, those of us that have been out there know that the tennis courts that are shown here at the north end have totally been removed and extended into the golf,
Yeah.
the golf hole there to put a number, and I've heard a number floated around 100 pickleball courts, that'll be available here, which is a fascinating number.
Yeah.
That'll be coming
Almost
forward.
unbelievable.
So, and we know, working with city management's office, that they're pouring concrete at, 0300 in the mornings to address the heat and cure process. So there's a lot of work going on the site right now. But I'm excited for the visitation. I think the parking plan, the coordination with PPA, the Brookhaven College, Dallas College, Brookhaven campus will be certainly important. Understanding how Uber and the ride shares will work and where those will go. All of those things will be fascinatingly important to the residents and our community as we go forward. What's the impact, and do we steer clear of that area for that time frame, or understand what the expectations are?
Yeah, and we can come back with an update and study session or whatnot closer to November. But more than likely in a few weeks, we're going to have something for people to look at and kind of chew on so they can understand the scope and the scale of the situation.
Thank you very much. I have nothing further at this time. Thank you.
And the tourism department has brought another friendly reminder of the pickleball craze. So when you go to get your dinner tonight, you'll see it. I'll leave it at that.
Very good. Councilman Jackson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, ladies. I was very pleasantly surprised, or not, maybe not surprised. It was a good feeling to go to their website and see they're using Farmers Branch and not Dallas branding on their website. And I know that there's a lot of variation in that depending on who's talking about the event as to whether they say Dallas or Farmers Branch. But I thought maybe you might
Correct.
give us a little bit of insight on the conversations that you have regarding, go back down. I'm sorry, scroll back up to the summary. One more. There it is. Yeah.
There it is.
So they say Farmers Branch as opposed to Dallas on their website. So that's great branding. What do the conversations look like between you guys and the PPA and others, and making sure that the Farmers Branch brand is promoted first?
Well, Meredith's requested it, and they know it's a request, so to where they can implement it, they have. It's a global tournament. So I think they're using both names. If you'll see, you might see Dallas at some times in a press release. Since we can't control what other media outlets are doing,
Understood.
we've asked PPA to use Farmers Branch, but we can't force NBC5 and people like that. But the information provided out to people to write the story is with this city name.
Excellent.
So the request has been out since we learned about it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Beard?
I really don't have anything, but it's very exciting, and thanks for the work you're doing on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Meredith's doing all the work, really, so pat her on the back.
Council?
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Councilman Roman?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Appreciate all the work you put in. We did go to see an event in California so we could get a better understanding of what a larger scope event looks like. There's been, when you think about events like this, and I can appreciate it owning an event production company, it just goes beyond, so much more beyond the on-site. There's police, there's fire, there's EMS, there's permitting for allowing contractors to pour concrete in the middle of the night. So thank you, Public Works, for working with them to do that. And a lot of things that people don't see, and
Yes.
inspections that need to be taking place, inspection of food trailers, inspection of temporary seating, bleachers, things of that nature. So there is a lot that goes into this, is taking a lot of city resources. But I am very hopeful that the payoff on the back end of this will be hey, we want to come back here next year.
Hey,
That's what we're working for.
We'd love
We're
that.
working for a longer-term deal.
That's so right. And the hotel occupancy fund.
Yeah.
So the hot fund is what we call it. So hopefully we are continuing to pour money into that with the bookings for this event, which are already pretty strong to date. And so can you imagine in the future?
Yep.
So got to build this barn somehow.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next up is A5. Discuss fees for electric vehicle charging at city facilities.
Thought I was off the hook for a second. All right. So good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Alex Formakis, Sustainability Manager. I'm here to talk about fees for EV charging at city facilities. So we're going to start with some background. We've all kind of seen some of these signs along the highway. Air pollution watch, our summer days, we tend to have high ozone levels. So you've probably seen this before. We had 48 ozone action days in 2022. We're under non-attainment for ground level ozone, so we're not in compliance with the Clean Air Act. So sustainability, public health, our department, air quality really has a big issue or impact with the work that we do because health, environment, they all kind of intersect there. So chargers, our main source of air pollution is mobile vehicles. There's ways that we can reduce air pollution. We have public transportation. We're a member of DART. We're working on making active transportation, walking, biking easier, safer in the city. But most of us probably drove here today. So how can we make vehicles more efficient and less polluting? Electrification is a big portion of that. So currently we have 7 public charging ports. These are all level 2 chargers, so they get about 20 miles of range per hour that's plugged in. These are at City Hall, there's 3, the library has 2, and the Justice Center has 2. And these are the public ones, not for city fleet. We had 3 original chargers out here at City Hall before I started. Those have been replaced and now are all on the same brand. So ChargePoint, these are all networked chargers. We have the capability to charge a fee for usage. We can see the data, usage data. With the original chargers, we did not have that. So you could pull in, plug in, and we really had no way of knowing usage other than just anecdotally looking out the window. And then EVs. So there's a huge trend towards electrification from manufacturers, but also just registration in Texas. Currently about 210,000 EVs are registered. At this time last year, that number was 145,000. So we've gone from 145 to 210,000. So pretty big increase. Market trends, we're seeing more people, look at electric options for their vehicles. So that's the background on our chargers. Currently, they're free to use. So one of the things that we've heard is about adopting a fee. So instead of just being able to plug in and go, actually paying for the electricity that's coming out of those charging ports. So we're going to get direction from you all today, but kind of a recommendation starting point here would be about 20 cents per kilowatt hour. And then with an overstay charge of $1 per hour. And so basically what that means is if you plug in your vehicle, it's fully charged, you're going to get an alert on your phone and it's going to say, hey, your battery's full, it's time to move your car. If you stay in this meeting, you're going to start ringing up an additional charge. This is aiming towards getting people that have been utilizing the charger for a long period of time, maybe overnight or throughout the day, to kind of move along, open up the spot for someone else. And so rough electricity rate for the city, 11 cents per kilowatt, charge point, processing fee for processing the payment, about 2 cents. This more than covers those expenses with that revenue there. And that would be placed into an account for charging maintenance, connectivity costs, and potential replacements. The other thing too I'll mention is the recommended fee is kind of between your average residential electricity costs would be lower than that. So people would be more incentivized to charge their vehicle at home. And then the fees levied at fast charging stations tend to be more expensive than that. Those fast charging ones are a lot more convenient. They throw up a lot of power, so it's, you charge in 45 minutes. These take a little bit longer. But so we kind of aim right for that middle there. So that's kind of the starting point on the public charging side. If that's the direction that we'd want to go, it's charging a fee for public usage. And then the split, I'm going to kind of shift gears going into staff charging. So we want some direction on staff that utilize chargers. We have some staff members that have electric vehicles that currently use the chargers. So one way we could move forward is providing free charging to employees. And the reason that we would want to do that, it's a little bit wonky here, but this is kind of what I live for, is our greenhouse gas inventory. So this is like kind of the data nerdiness of sustainability. But we did our first greenhouse gas inventory for the city. So we used 2019 data. This is as an organization, so your workplace could or maybe has done something similar. If you look here, all the data on the right, these are our emissions. So associated with our operations as an organization, we have emissions associated with our vehicle fleet, with the buildings, the electricity that's keeping the lights on. Those all have a carbon emission, a carbon footprint, if that terminology is a little bit more familiar to you. Employee commute actually counts as part of our operations, our emissions. So that's a scope 3 emission. If we have a goal to reduce our emissions as an organization, we have to attack every slice of this pie. So if we have electric vehicle charging for employees, that's a workplace perk. That's an incentive. If I'm thinking about, my next vehicle, should it be electric or not? If I know I can charge at work for free or for a discounted price, whatever the direction is, that might push someone towards electrification, cleaner air. There's as I mentioned, a few tools in our disposal as a city that we can use to improve our air quality associated with transportation. This is one of those, and it's kind of limited, but that is a reasoning that we could offer that for employees. So that's our, an effective way to potentially reduce our emissions as a city, and it does provide another employee benefit. So it's a fairly common one. You see a lot of the corporate campuses have a lot of these chargers in their garages. They're doing these greenhouse gas inventories similar to like what we're doing here. So with that, I can take questions and we'll receive direction from y'all.
Very good. Councilman Merritt?
Alex, thanks for the presentation. Could you give a kind of a standard use case, if you will? I'm driving my electric car around. I don't have one, so I'm trying to understand. And I need to charge, I want to charge. How long would I be on a particular device? And we talked about the level 2 chargers, and then you mentioned the fast chargers, which is a higher grade that we're not talking about. So if I come up to the city hall, we have the opportunity to plug in. I'll identify myself with either a login. Help me understand, help me walk through that. And then how long are we talking about, and what would our bill be to that particular patron, if it's myself, for charging for an hour or 6 hours? Help me understand that.
Okay, so you're gonna go check out a book at the library, you have your EV, you drive over there, you take your app, you're gonna basically unlock the system with that and plug in. You're gonna get about 20 miles of range per hour that you're plugged in at 6 kilowatts probably per hour. So multiply that, $1.20 per hour or so is what that would end up costing you. And then you check out your book, you do whatever you need to do there, get back in your car and go. Most people charge overnight. The stat is about 80% of the people charging, at their homes overnight. But for people that maybe don't have access to charging, if you live in multifamily or you maybe just don't have the breaker capacity at your house, this is an option for some folks, kind of in the mid-tier on charging rate. The fast chargers like the Tesla, big stations, kind of those are the ones that are going to charge very, very quickly. Probably take you 45 minutes or so to fill up your battery. Those are rather expensive chargers. So this, and there's a lot of infrastructure that goes in on the electrical side. These level 2s are kind of that middle ground that provide for the kind of standard amenity of how long you would use a city or a public building. You would get kind of that charge out of it. It wouldn't be probably something you would do every day, but it's an amenity of the building, and it does kind of show it's a visible commitment to sustainability. We're trying to be a leader in the space. That's a pretty big one. You see a lot of cities have these around, and so that's kind of the reasoning behind that.
So we're talking roughly $1.20. You said 6 kilowatt hours over the course of an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so does that $1 overage fee that you talked about occur during that period or after that period?
It would be after. So it'd be once your vehicle is filled up. If you were just leaving it there or something like that, then you're going to start getting a recurring charge.
And then on top of that, if I drove up to the library and had my 1 hour, that's what we're targeting the usage at 1 hour. But if I was still connected for 2 hours or 3 hours, am I still paying my $1.20 for every 6 kilowatt hours that I'm
So
consuming?
you would be paying that-
Plus
that-
a dollar?
that
I'm trying to understand the consumption.
So you would be
model.
paying a 20 cent per kilowatt hour base charge. So every kilowatt hour that's charging your battery, you're paying 20 cents.
Right.
Once that's full, it'll start on an hourly rate. So basically, if you have a vehicle that's plugged in and its battery's full right now, someone could just leave it and stay, all day. And then they're not moving along.
We're never
Yeah.
going to be able to, mandate customer behavior here.
Yeah, and so that
I'm
once
trying to
it's-
make sure I understand the front.
This way,
end.
it keeps charging the whole time, charging a fee the whole time someone is plugged in versus once the battery's full, cutting off, and then that person just sits there.
Gotcha.
So it'll continually charge a fee, and that's the nudge for someone to take their car and move along and open it up for the next person.
Last question is, you said ChargePoint, I believe, is the firm.
Yes.
Do we already pay a processing fee with
Not
them, or
right.
will there be a new processing fee once we start charging?
That'll be that 10% processing fee on all the revenue generated from the individual station. We pay ongoing connectivity costs, so that's basically the cell data network. But that would be an additional processing fee that we currently don't pay.
All right, no further questions at this
Very good.
time.
Councilman
Alex,
Jackson.
thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So the perception is that Farmers Branch taxpayers are subsidizing the transportation costs for people that can afford to buy Teslas, electric BMWs. I mean, I've seen a Tesla parked overnight at the library. I've seen out-of-state license plates parked at our charging stations. And the perception is, because I get pictures and texts from people that see this, is that we're spending all this money giving away free electricity. Where's my gas pump where I can pull up and fill up my tank for free? The reality is that first, all of these stations were put in with grant money. Is that right?
Most of them were, yes.
Most of them were, okay. So the startup initial costs and all of that were for the most part covered by grant money. And then the cost of the electricity that we're today giving away is relatively low, but somewhere in the packet I saw roughly $3.28 per day
Per port, that's correct.
per port, right? If I take that times the 13 ports we're planning to have by the end of the year, 50% utilization, we're looking at about $7,800 a year in free electricity, right? Not a big number, but those are taxpayer dollars.
No, valid point, and that's one of the reasons
Right.
having the potential to get a fee in place and the replacement of the city hall ones that were there originally, that puts us all on the same platform, so it can be consistent.
Right.
If this is the
Right.
direction we want to move forward with.
Right. All for employees, that being a benefit to them to get, their cars charged up for free. That's great. What I'm wondering is there, I know that our cost is 11 cents per kilowatt. We're going to charge 20. There's a 2-cent charge processing fee. So net, we're getting 7 cents profit, right, off that?
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for us at some point to put in faster chargers, increase our revenue from these stations?
That is a possibility. I would recommend we'd need some pretty substantial grant funding in order to do that, to make the business case for a fast charger. It'll be, just with the federal funding coming down, there's a lot of potential for private sector involvement within that too. So in the near term, I don't have any plans for recommending a fast charger. However, if there's a 80% match on a grant, or 80% funding opportunity, that changes the business case a little bit.
Okay, so-
And we can see what the landscape in the market.
Government funding gets you the typical slow government product with these chargers. Okay, I get that part.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Ballpark of fast charger would cost?
Charger itself, like just the actual charger, would be about 60,000 for a fast charger. These are about 4,000. So just so you
Big
the
difference.
actual just charger itself, and then Encore would
The transformers and things of that nature.
Encore probably have to do a transformer on site for the fast chargers.
Yeah, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I'm supportive of charging, because again, the perception is, and that perception's reality, that we're giving away free electricity, and regardless of whether it's 7,000 or 70,000, those are taxpayer dollars, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Councilman Baird.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. Can you give me an idea on this may be straying off a little bit, but on the charges that we put in, that was put in with grant money, but is that just for the chargers, or did the city pay for the infrastructure to get the electricity to the chargers? And how did that break down?
Most of them were just reimbursable grants. So the library, for example, we got money through the Volkswagen, it's the TCEQ. Volkswagen, they got caught in the emissions scandal. They had to give a lot of money, so we were able to steal some of that grant funding, and it could be used for either the purchase of the charger, infrastructure, the fleet chargers that we have at the Justice Center and at City Hall, same thing. It was anything that was related to this, so expanding the electricity capacity, purchasing the charger, initial costs on anything like that. It was all.
So was there much out of pocket from the city? to do
So
all
on
these?
the actual chargers themselves, not very much. It's more the electrical infrastructure prepping that we incurred a cost on, and that was, I believe, 2 budget cycles ago.
Okay.
1 or 2 budget cycles. And so what we did is we basically built out future capacity. So it's electrical upgrades that benefit the building, not just for EVs, but if we expand our EV, let's say with the fleet outside here at City Hall, we can do that with we've sort of future-proofed it, I guess. So we put a little bit more money in the front end on the capacity for a little bit easier plug and play moving down the road.
So does that mean you could put in more at the library or more, or is that just at City Hall?
City Hall and the Justice Center is where we built that capacity, because those were, potential areas with fleet vehicles. We are adding 2 additional chargers out here at City Hall, and then we're putting 4 in at the rec center. And those were approved last budget cycle. So.
Okay. I think the overstay fee should be $5 or $10 an hour. $1 is not going to do anything.
Okay.
I don't think. I'd be interested in hearing
I agree.
the other council members on that. And I like the idea of city employees being able to charge. I would go with cost if there was a way to program that into the system.
Okay.
To where when they log in with their city email, let's say, to the app, that we figure out about what cost is.
Okay.
And I think that's all. Thank you.
Councilwoman?
I was going to ask, to date, what have we spent on electricity that we've just given away?
So I'd have to go back and do the math, but that $328 per port, we've had most of these in around a year to, I think the ones at the library are a little bit longer than that. So I'd have to go back and get some exact numbers for you.
Well, and I can tell you, so at $3.28 per day with 7 ports, at 100% utilization, we're looking at about $7,800 a year.
Right. Well, and to my point on that, if we're spending $4,000 on one, and if I understood correctly, not all of them were covered by grants, then to Councilman Baird's point, $1 per hour over, that's just, you're not encouraging them to leave. That's not encouragement to leave. But I will say, I think as a perk to the staff, many of them travel in. I'm all for having that covered for them. So.
Okay. Councilman Roman?
So just to follow up on what they said, I agree. I don't think $1 is going to do anything. I could pay $1 and sit there for 12 hours and only pay $12. But if I paid more, then I'm like, oh, it's winding down my Whataburger budget if I sit there longer. So, I wouldn't want to do that. But just some thoughts to support what they were saying. So as I was thinking about this weekend, technology is interesting because I think they're reading my mind as I was reading this packet, because I saw a video there was a dispute going on between individuals about one person who had parked at a charging port station, charged their vehicle. When they finished charging their vehicle, they unplugged it and put it back up, and then they went and continued shopping with what they were doing. I don't know if they had a similar situation where you get charged a certain amount if it continues to charge after your car is full. But do we have any way to address that if someone just, like, let's say I was at the library and I was charging and I got a notification, your car's full, and I don't want to get charged whatever dollars per hour after it's full, and I went and I just unplugged it and then went back in and finished reading my book?
We don't have anything at this time. I mean, I think that would involve some sort of enforcement mechanism, which probably wouldn't be worth the amount of money that we would, I guess, be losing from that charger not being utilized. It's something we could potentially look into, but we don't have a mechanism.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a problem just now, but it's something that I thought about, and I just want to keep an eye on it. And if it becomes a problem, then if you wouldn't mind letting us know or letting the city manager's office know, so that way we can discuss the problem and see if there's any way that we might be able to resolve it. But I just want to be careful that we're not creating fights from people. It was another Tesla user who was upset that they were unable to charge their vehicle because someone was taking up this parking spot. So, and the other question I had, something that sort of stood out to me was in the rec center, you said that you're going to put 4 of those charging ports there.
Yes.
Or charging stations. Where is that going to go?
Actually over by the dog park, not by the main entrance, but across the parking lot, right across from the school there.
Okay, so more towards the entrance of where the dog park is?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Alrighty, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to take us a step back, if you will. If I have an electric car and I go to someplace in the city, and let's just say I go to the library, and I run in and I'm there for 30 minutes, but I plug my car into the charging station, I'm there 30 minutes. I come out, I don't know how much juice the thing's put in my car, but let's just say 75 cents worth of electricity. I don't know. Do I get charged 75 cents or do I get charged $1.75?
So you would be charged, let's say if you used, for example, 3 kilowatt hours, you would be charged 60 cents. And you would be charged 60 cents, like if you use 3 kilowatt hours at this 20-cent rate, you would be charged 60 cents. And that goes through that ChargePoint app, which you would already have your credit information in.
So why wouldn't we charge them $1 plus the electricity, and for every additional hour that you're connected, it's another $1?
So like a fee, as soon as they plug in, you charge up $1, and then for every additional kilowatt hour,
Yes.
this 20 cents. I think that's something we could look into as far as the capability of the chargers.
That's, I would be more inclined to support something like that, number one. Then it makes it more worth our while because we're going to have a lot of very small transactions, possibly. People who just run in, they're trying to connect real quick, get a quick charge, go return a book, check one out, come back.
As
Whatever.
far as the city being paid through ChargePoint, it's once a month. So we
Right.
wouldn't be getting,
Right.
payments for 40 cents here and there, but
But it's keeping up and managing this, and then also putting aside some difference. You've got 7 cents in there based on your proposal, just on the electricity rate alone, that I would assume would be set aside in a charging fund, if you will. I don't know that that 7 cents is going to go to the general fund, but let's just say it goes to the charging fund to take care of maintenance and other associated expenses with charging equipment.
that's the
Okay.
plan right now. Yes.
Okay, so, time will tell whether this grows, catches on, whether we have to look at investing in the rapid chargers. You said that ours are level 2 chargers.
Correct.
So are we putting in outdated technology, or are we just putting in the very basic technology, but there's better stuff out there available elsewhere?
So this is kind of the middle tier. The level 2, so there's a level 1, level 2 DC fast charger. So this is kind of right in the middle. Given the use cases of our buildings, someone going in and using the facility for an hour or two, the level 2 charger kind of fits within that. Those fast chargers are what you'll probably see get adopted by gas stations, taking out a gas pump and putting in a fast charger. And that would be something if you're driving on a road trip or something and you don't have access to your home charger, you're going to pull in and plug in, and it's going to charge your battery very fast. There's some information out there about only using fast chargers degrading batteries faster. So the slower batteries, like charging overnight at home, or a level 2 charger like this, is kind of that sweet spot from a price perspective, battery degradation, and but yeah, it's the fast chargers are really fast but really expensive.
Okay. But we don't have any metrics per se from the library or City Hall to know how long cars on average were connected?
We do. The average is about 3 hours or so.
Okay.
So the last I looked at was about 3 hours per session.
And then when they, so, okay. Then my last question is going to be, not with respect to the charger itself, it's going to be with respect to the base that the charger sits on. The city was responsible for getting power from wherever to whatever point where the charger is.
Correct.
So either we hired an electrical contractor to bore, dig, whatever, and then set that base so a charging unit could be placed there.
Correct.
Okay. Am I correct when you said grant funding or reimbursable grant funding was our expense associated with that basic infrastructure covered?
So not all of it, but partially. So
Okay.
most of our grant funding covered the cost of the charger and some of the cost for either electrical infrastructure or the install of the unit.
Okay. And so maybe looking to the future, if we were to ever install the rapid chargers at some place in the city, we'd still have to provide that infrastructure setup. But I assume we would first look to any type of grant funding associated that would cover that.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I got. Anything else on this? Shane?
Can we do, so there's a couple different ideas come out in terms of pricing. So Shane Davis, Director of Sustainability and Public Health. You threw out the idea of adding $1 on top of the rate we proposed. Trying to get a sense from y'all, if we need to work on a fee structure here. That's a little different what we proposed. We heard the idea, so it's supported for the additional or much higher, what you full, what do we call it,
The overstay.
overstaying charge. So we got that one, but then you threw out a different idea. Just want to make sure, is there consensus on that one, or is it? I'm concerned with your proposal. I hear what you're coming from, I agree, but also I don't want to also have vacant chargers. We put these things in, ideally we'd like people to use them, make some money off of them. That's my biggest concern with what you threw out, is if we add this $1 per hour onto that, are we going to far exceed the market rate at the moment?
I think the general idea, Shane, is this sounds awfully inexpensive.
You're looking at
And,
different, not per gallon, it's per kilowatt now.
right,
So
understood.
Fuel source essentially.
I think that the price should be a little bit higher, leaving us 7 cents to cover the cost of, I'm assuming that if something happens to one of these chargers, that's on us to fix.
Correct, there's probably a warranty up front usually for a little while, then if that is on
Okay,
us.
right, so 7 cents per kilowatt hour. Somebody sits there for 3 hours, we're gonna get 21 cents. Seems awfully small to cover what potential costs there might be in maintaining, these services. And so I think that generally we should increase the price. How we do that, maybe up to the technology. Can we charge a hookup fee of $5? And then it's 20 cents per kilowatt hour? Or is it $1.20 per kilowatt hour? And that's just ridiculous. Now nobody's using it. I don't know. But generally, I think we need to increase the price a little bit to cover the costs.
Are we kind of good with a middle between the price of a fast charging station and the residential electricity fee? That was kind of the target that we went with. Is that, maybe we go a little bit closer towards the fast charging fee?
Well, we don't have any fast chargers.
I
Okay,
was talking just generally in the
Market price,
market, yeah.
price.
yeah. So, and market price per kilowatt hour is how much?
It depends on the brand of charger, but maybe,
Okay.
I think 30 to 40 cents.
Okay, so we could be 25 to 28 cents.
now? Now?
Raise ours to 25, 28 cents.
You're just seemingly picking a number out of the
I-
air.
I know,
at the
it's-
moment.
Are there any other municipalities or anywhere that is charging for them that we can go and look at and see that they're being successful?
Most of the municipalities are actually doing free charging still, at least in our area, but I can do some further research to see
Okay.
on the level twos that the cities own, what their pricing is. And you can actually look at that mostly through the app, so.
And when we see what's available there, and maybe even compare to some of the private sector, like if you're at the airport or something, what's offered, just to have something to compare to. And then we can revisit this. I think the emphasis should be on getting this back sooner rather than later, because the general attitude is we want to start charging.
Yeah, and I would agree that, I think we're all in agreement that we'd like to start charging. And charging with dollars rather than electricity. And I found that humorous a moment ago, but.
I mean, charging for charging?
Charging for charging, that's correct. So I think it's trying to figure out what that number is. I mean, the fact that we're getting grants and, opportunities for that, that's all good. And at the end of the day, if we're just trying to manage the dollars, we're really talking very small. And I mean, Richard, you gave the numbers, what'd you say, 700, 800?
7,800 a year.
A year. I mean, we're wasting staff time, the clock is spinning on that, making this look silly. So I really think the fact of the matter is, we convey the use case that says, we're going to charge you for the kilowatt hour, and then if you overstay, once you fill up, and I think that's what I've come away with, once you fill up, we're charging you $1 an hour while you sit there.
And we'll increase that based on.
And we talk about increasing that, correct, and I think, whether it's $2 or $5, once you fill up, and I think that's the key that we got to, that you filled up, you need to move on. Because now you're just taking up space. And obviously, the scenario that, Omar, you talked about, where someone just occupied the space, that hopefully we don't get into that. But I think that's the right first step. And then that way we're not, we want to, and not to be disingenuous to your concern, but that way we don't price ourselves out of the market
Right.
and nobody comes.
Right.
And then we're in a different pickle then. So I think that's the best approach that we start going.
So personally, my thoughts on this is that, if other municipalities are still charging for free, and we're charging an amount, then I feel comfortable with the recommendation that you've provided with the modification that it's $10 an hour, I think is what Councilman Baird proposed for
The overstay.
the overstay per hour. That's what I would feel comfortable with. I think we're talking whether we do 20 cents or 25 cents, I think it's a very minimal, insignificant amount that I don't think that it's worth you guys doing any additional research for, but that's just my own opinion.
I'll just revisit paying for the city employees for free, that it seems unfair, just the way I thought it was unfair that we were letting people charge for free, and then people that don't have electric cars I would assume the vast majority of city employees don't have electric cars, and so we're giving this benefit to one group just because they have an electric car. It doesn't seem, I know it's very small numbers, but.
I would caution you in that. I think that my assumption, I don't have solid evidence, but that the majority of folks who probably have electric vehicles are probably in management positions with the city, and they're probably driving around to and from various different locations each day as part of their job duties. And so we can pay them mileage for gas, or we could allow them to charge for free. We've already established this is such a minimal amount anyway. And if you reduce it to just those city employees, that
It's nothing.
makes it almost negligible. I'm more interested in general public in what we're providing, because we have people, as you said, for out-of-state license plates, et cetera, and we're not going to be the trough for everybody in terms of general public. So I'm fine with providing staff this benefit.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Moving on. Agenda number A7, review the proposed creation of a tiered enforcement solution for aggressive dogs.
I think they will come back. But fees.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. For those of you who have not met me yet, my name is Sarah McComb, and I'm the Animal Services Manager. I'd like to talk today about updating the existing code as it relates to dangerous dogs and aggressive dogs. Currently, our regulations create an all-or-nothing enforcement policy. Either a dog is viewed as a perfect companion or as a dangerous threat to the community. Current law also states that once a dog is deemed dangerous, it remains so forever. I don't think there's anything wrong with the dangerous code when it's properly applied, but the law's lack of other behavior categories doesn't allow the city to take action when a dog is deemed less than dangerous. Animal behavior science tells us that some dogs can display aggressive tendencies as part of normal behavior without actually being dangerous as defined by law. I think the archetypal example is that everybody's dog hates the mailman, right? Your dog hates the mailman. Everybody's dog hates the mailman. What if your dog is out and chasing the mailman? This is aggressive behavior, and current law doesn't allow me to classify it as long as nobody is hurt. So, just because somebody doesn't get hurt doesn't mean that it's not something that I need to keep an eye on. If the behavior isn't considered dangerous, then I don't get to monitor it, except for writing a ticket for at-large. An example of a dangerous dog is a dog who runs up and bites someone without provocation, and we just had this happen over on Selma. Those dogs were deemed dangerous. The problem is that those dogs were running around exhibiting aggressive behavior for many, many months before it escalated into the dangerous, and it would have been nice if we could have avoided that with some upgraded enforcement. The inflexibility of the law prevents me from using professional discretion based on evidence and behavioral science. It also can result in cases of under-enforcement. I may want to keep an eye on the dog that menaced the mailman, that ran after the mailman, but the current law doesn't allow me to do so, apart from issuing a citation for at-large. Of course, we all know there's more than one type of at-large dog. Some of them get out and just wander around and sniff the flowers and go home, and there's no problem. Some of them get out and they actually do create problems. They chase people walking dogs. They might bite somebody. We think that latter group warrants stronger regulation. Creating these new classifications of behavior allows more opportunity for enforcement to address behavior before it becomes dangerous. So we'll talk a little bit about the possible tiered options for categorizing these dogs. Oops, sorry. The good boy is a well-behaved companion. We're not going to be watching your good boys. The aggression level 1 would be chasing or menacing a human being or animal while at large. Aggression level 2 is biting or scratching a human while at large. Aggression level 3 is significantly injuring or causing the death of another animal, or 2 offenses at level 2. So you could potentially be bumped up to level 3 if you have 2 offenses at level 2. And then dangerous is significantly injuring or causing the death of a human, or 2 offenses at aggression level 3. So the proposed enforcement on this would be aggression level 1. Now I'm watching you. I've got your number. I've got your microchip number. I've got your picture. You're on my list now, which you would not have been on my list if you were just a normal good boy. Aggression level 2. I may require sterilization with level 1. Level 2, I may require public liability of insurance of up to $100,000 and may require completion of a responsible pet ownership program in addition to all the enforcement that comes along with level 1. Aggression level 3 takes into account all of level 1 and 2, but also requires signage notifying of the public of the presence of an aggressive dog. And then your dog must wear a muzzle when it leaves the house. And so let's say you're going to take your dog to the vet, but you're in aggression level 2, you would be putting a muzzle on your dog from your front door until you get to the car and everywhere in between. Several cities have adopted a tiered approach to classifying dog behavior along with a process for declassification. Allowing declassification of dogs if certain parameters are met permits the city to forgive human error surrounding unpredictable events. So a good example is, let's say you're at home watching a movie and your dog's outside, a stiff wind blows through, and maybe your fence panel blows over, and this may or may not have happened to somebody in this room. Your dog is out running around, and then it gets picked up by animal control and is deemed aggressive level 1. But you're a good dog owner, so you go home and you fix your fence and you fix it right, and by God, that dog is never getting out again. So the next year, I haven't heard anything from you. That would potentially allow me to declassify you as a level 1 aggressive dog. You no longer have to be watched by the city. More specifically, you have taken proactive steps as an owner to ensure the safety of the community, and that's really what we're going for here. I just want to make it clear that we're not asking for changes to the dangerous dog regulation. I'm asking for feedback on a tiered system that creates more educational opportunities, more enforcement opportunities, and more opportunities to change animal and human behavior, so hopefully a dog never becomes dangerous in the first place. And I would be happy to take your question. You see, I couldn't bring dogs with me, so I stuck them on the slides.
Hey, Sarah, thank you for the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and speak to this, having been a
Sure.
victim.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You are a victim.
Yes, and so when I read this, good boy, aggression 1, aggression 2, aggression 3, I'm more like the 3 strikes and you're out on this. I was not leaning towards 4 levels here.
Got it.
I was thinking, okay, we have good dogs.
Sure.
We have dogs that get out on occasion by the fence blowing down, the wind blows the gate open. And then we have aggressive dogs.
Right.
And so aggressive and dangerous, based on your tiered solution here, I sort of viewed that as 1.
You do.
Just
That's
me.
the way the current law views it.
Okay. I don't know, I've just come to take a stronger stance on this based on my experience. But I just wanted to say that. So
Oh, sure. I
I'll
appreciate
let
that
David,
feedback.
Councilman Merritt speak.
Yeah, Sarah, thanks for the presentation. I think I have a little bit of a similar vein. The aggression level 3, causing the death of another animal, that's pretty close to dangerous in my book. But I'm just a homeowner with hopefully 2 good dogs. So I can understand needing, as you've pointed out, a progression to where you can manage and escalate and de-escalate, as you said, over time. I get that. I think I'm of the ilk that maybe there's just aggression level 1 and 2, and then everything else is dangerous.
Okay, so 3, you think 3 may go too far? I can.
That's just and I understand, the challenges to a degree of what have laid out in the presentation, that it's binary. You're either a good or you're dangerous. There's no middle ground. And so I'm always back to the use case that we're trying to solve. This gives you more tools in your toolbox to address that. And it also talks about, as you said earlier on, or later in one of the slides, the benefits that someone can go back into a good status. They're not always on the bad list, if you will.
Right.
So I can appreciate that from utilization perspective.
Sure.
So those are my comments.
Thank you.
Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Do what you've got to do to make it stop. I get texts, emails, and phone calls from parents who will not allow their children to play in their front yard because the loose dog situation in Farmers Branch has gotten so bad. I can appreciate the good dogs that might get out because a fence blew down, an anomaly. But we have cases across the city where those are not anomalies. It's routine. I saw one just this past week of a pair of dogs sitting in the shade out near a curb. One, well, I'm not going to say the breed, but neighbors know these dogs. They're scared of these dogs. They've been aggressive, and yet they're still out there running around. And it's got to end. So whatever we have to do, I feel the same way, I think, as the mayor and councilman Merritt feel, is that, no pun intended, this seems like too long of a leash
Okay.
on the aggression. I think we need to get to the solution a little bit faster.
Got it.
Councilman Baird?
Echoing generally, I like this a lot. I think that take one level out. I think that'd be probably the sweet spot, but I like the idea. I didn't know that this was the situation, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilwoman?
Well, you know I'm the dog lover in the group. But I agree. I mean, and I've got black labs, hunting dogs. They were bred for that. However, they might chase a human to get love and lick on them and slobber all over them. The minute they saw a squirrel and got up to it, they would stop and run the other direction. So they are true retrievers, not killers. So I just feel like if they're going to go after another animal to the extent of doing harm, that's not appropriate. That's poor parenting of your animal.
Got it.
Sarah, can we make one point of clarification? When we
Yes.
say another animal, we're talking about another pet, not a wild animal, for example.
Well, actually, it was supposed to be everything excluding poultry
Excluding poultry, okay.
or other birds, because birds are sort of built into dog DNA, whether they're retrievers or not. But it's any animal excluding poultry is the way that the model law I was using was written.
You just upset all the backyard chicken people.
I know it. I'm sorry. I know
Councilman Roman?
Those are my people too.
So I think it should be aggression 1, aggression 2, and then really that's it. I think everything that's in aggression 3 for me qualifies as dangerous. So I think we make it to where a dog's behavior can get them closer to dangerous much quicker if it's a really serious offense.
Got it. I
And the
hear you
parent
guys.
needs to take responsibility for them.
Yeah, and I like in there that there's a requirement for completion of a responsible pet ownership program, because, I take my dogs to dog parks, and their dog could be jumping on me and doing all kinds of stuff that really bothers me, and they're just like, oh, they're just playing, and it's like, well, it's really annoying me. And so sometimes I think that the owner of the pet has much of the responsibility, if not all of the responsibility, for the way that their dog behaves. So I think that was a really important component to input into
Sure.
this.
Okay. Gotcha.
May I add something?
You may.
If you don't mind, I'm Leo Bonanno. I'm the Director of Neighborhood Services, and Sarah, I'm lucky enough to have her as a manager over the adoption center. Sarah, would you go back to the 1, 2, 3 slide? Yeah, that one. I just want to make sure that it's clear because I heard Councilman Roman say it, and this is what I thought when I first saw this slide too. It looks like, okay, a good boy got out of line. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. That's what it looked like. But then when I read it again and I realized, and Councilman Jackson's explanation just now kind of helped me frame it, but Councilman Jackson just said he saw 2 dogs under a tree, just relaxing in the shade, right? Well, those owners would get a citation for not having a leash on their dogs. They're not contained. So a citation for at large, that's it. If the animal services folks can get a hold of the dogs, they will impound them, and then they'll give them back to the owners. First time it's free, a little slap on the wrist, and you're done. But if, in your case, Councilman Jackson, those dogs happen to bite a mailman walking by, and they draw blood, let's say, for example, that they jump right to 3. It is not 1, 2, 3, like what first strike, second strike, third strike. They go right to 3. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear because I wasn't sure if that was getting across to everyone and I missed it at first. And then when I reread it, I'm like, okay, we don't have to go through 1 and 2 to get to 3. We can jump right to 3 if it's warranted. We can still jump to dangerous if it's warranted. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
For example, Terry, what happened to you is an immediate 3.
Understood. Okay,
Yeah.
I get that.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, your bite was quite severe and it was completely unprovoked. And so that would either be a level 3 or a dangerous.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That
No,
helps.
not just a.
Thank you.
Very helpful, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I think what I was just saying was that, you know, if it's not an incredibly serious offense and they're working their way through multiple different aggression stages, then I think eliminating 3 and just being able to get to dangerous is kind of what I would prefer.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Hearing that. Okay. Well, thank you guys. Does anybody have anything else for me?
Yeah, Sarah, if I may,
Yes.
can you go back to, I believe you call it the slide for tiered solution, this
Yep.
one here. So when we talk about eliminating, if you will, or consolidating 2 and 3, how does that, what do your solutions here, how does that work out?
Well, it's a good question, although the signage is already part of dangerous. And so if we were to remove number 3, we would just, that's already in dangerous.
Okay.
Level 3, so dangerous dog requires $300,000 worth of insurance.
Okay.
Okay, so that if we removed 3, we'd be moving up to, from level 2 to, rather than having 100,000, it'd be 300,000. And then the muzzle part is not in our current dangerous law, so it may need to be put in there.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's,
that has
that's
nothing to-
exactly, as I was looking through this and we were changing, I wondered how you were going to
Yeah,
integrate those particular, bullet points that you have here, so.
yeah, already in 3 is already kind of most of the way to dangerous,
Yes.
most of the way. It's just not dangerous, which means you potentially could be declassified out of aggression 3, but what I'm hearing is that we don't like aggression 3. We should just go to dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it. Well, that's all for me, if you guys are
Thank you.
all
All
set.
right,
Somebody come adopt Leland, he's my favorite dog.
thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we should.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next item, which is A8. Hopefully we can get this done in reasonable fashion. Discuss the addition of home occupation regulations to the city's business code.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lynn, Council. Jared McGraw, Code Enforcement Manager. I wanted to bring back the topic of home occupations today. There has been some conversation on this in the past, recent past. I'll go over a little bit of that with you. Code Enforcement has received in 2022 a good number of complaints regarding home-based business activities. This was brought up to the council at that time in October of 2022 by the Director of Neighborhood Services for discussion and feedback. The topic was essentially tabled at that time, so we wanted to bring it up again today to see what the desires of this council might be and what your thoughts and direction might be for implementing some sort of regulations for these. So right now, where we are, the state essentially gives homeowners the inherent right to operate to some extent home occupations. Cities can regulate them, but with some limitations. Some cities do regulate side effects of home occupations, which is essentially where we're at right now. Some regulate specific occupations, and some do both, which is probably what a recommendation from us would entail if y'all decided to implement something in this regard. Farmers Branch right now currently doesn't have any regulations. We've got a definition. We've essentially got a use table saying where a home occupation can be, but it's kind of tough to just enforce a definition. So having some regulations for us to point to, things went to court, it kind of clear cuts it with the judge, a jury, the prosecutor to actually have something to hold these tangible specifics of what a home occupation is. It also helps the citizens know, here's exactly what the city's laid out, what I can and can't do in a residential neighborhood when it comes to businesses. And it helps code enforcement have a good guiding angle for approaching any violations that may appear. So, like I said, regulations can help us with future complaints, but it also helps the citizens that use those home-based businesses too. So some examples right now of what some of the local area cities do. These are not all encompassing. These are just a few examples taken out from each. I do actually have a pretty extensive list of a lot of cities with their full regulations. If anybody wants that in the near future, we can get that to you. But I'll go over a few of these. You'll see some of them are very similar. A lot of them have pretty standard regulations. Some of them break it down into specifics. Frisco, for example, sign is prohibited. Most of them have some sort of advertisement prohibited, don't want anything visible on the property. Some actually require off-site advertisement is prohibited as well. So just depending on where you want to go with it. Another example from Frisco, no more than 2 employees, no regular deliveries by vehicles over 1.5 tons. So it can get very specific with parking, delivery vehicles. Flower mount, again, signage prohibited. Primary structure only. You couldn't use an accessory structure, for example, to operate this business out of. And they go as far as to just clear-cut labeling some businesses that just wouldn't be allowed as auto furniture repair, beauty shops, dance studios. They would just completely outlaw some specific ones. And then Richardson, again, the signs, a lot of them have the hazardous materials. You can't have explosive, flammable stuff on site. And then vehicle appliance repair would be strictly prohibited. So this is not all encompassing again, but just some examples of some local area cities. So where can we go from here? Today we'll bring, as we're doing now, we'll bring up the discussion. You can ask questions. You can provide feedback for where you think we need to go with this, or decide, are these home occupations still even a topic of interest for you guys? If so, we can attempt to draft a home occupation regulation based on your feedback today. We can get that to the legal team for review, and then if decide to go forward with that, recommend an ordinance, bring it forward for approval, and then we can start enforcement on it. As a great code philosopher once said, a legal home occupation should be one that is practically invisible. So keep that in mind as you're thinking of questions and thoughts if you haven't already. But with that, we'll open it up to you guys for questions.
Thank you, Jared.
Yes, sir.
So in the interest of time, I want to try to move this along because we want to get to executive session here very quickly. But things that popped out in my mind after reading this. Cannot block streets or alleys with delivery vehicles. That's, and I know that we have a situation with the alleys being blocked in one particular neighborhood. I'd like to know, when you come back to us, about storage of construction equipment on property or on unpaved surfaces. I'd like to know about parking of vehicles on property, for example, trucks, vans, trailers, or equipment, construction type equipment on property, especially visible from the front. And then workers coming to and from a residence, especially of the day laborer type. Okay. Does anybody else have anything quickly they'd like to add? Councilman Jackson?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jared. So specifically, I don't know that I'm comfortable with perhaps pointing out specific types of businesses. But I think that we can address the activities, the materials, the nature of these businesses without actually pointing them out. One in particular, driveway mechanics. We've got a few of them around Farmers Branch. There's a few that are thorns in our sides. The hazardous chemicals, the cars, that activity can be addressed perhaps without saying you can't run an auto repair shop out of your driveway, perhaps. I don't know. It makes a lot of work for Pete, but.
Maybe limited to a location specific on the property, not visible.
Yeah, and I agree with the mayor, no storage of equipment, construction materials, vehicles, that kind of thing, because I know of another situation where they're hiding trailers of masonry, material and equipment and trailers and such in a backyard. They're using the alley. Alleys were not built to withstand that kind of traffic, and so I just think we need to be thoughtful about our ordinance, but I would fully support it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Merritt?
Yeah, I think, you've put up the slide with the other cities. I think understanding the use cases here and kind of what problems that we're having, we're hearing some that are being brought to our attention, and we don't have a mechanism to address them. I get that. But I think we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, because I'm thinking about, my dad would fix the car in his driveway, and maybe he'd fix my wife's car. I think there's a slippery slope that goes to that. Now, clearly, if it's, Merritt's Garage and we're prohibiting the sign, there's a difference there. I get that. But I don't want us to be in a reactionary type of community, like, they're working on a car, they're running a business. There's some weirdness in my mind on how that works.
And a lot of time it is, sorry to cut you off, there is, monitoring situations, there would take some investigation on our point, right? And so if it's these one-off here and there, those are generally pretty obvious. On the other end, as Jackson alluded to, some are really obvious.
Correct, and I get that. So I think we need to look at the holistic, what are we trying to solve for? And I'm always big about the use case here. And right now, it's like, we want to address all home occupations, and I don't think that's where we're going. I think we've heard things about parking and delivery and access to alleys and big trucks. And I remember that, Chief Siegel gave us a presentation on trucks. Does a UPS truck exceed a 1.5 ton? Here we go. I got a UPS. Am I running a business? I work out of the home right now. My wife does too. There's two of us, but we're not running an occupation. So how do you do a hybrid work situation? And there's a lot of these challenges that we have to.
There are a lot of moving parts to it, yes.
Correct. So appreciate the challenge that you're having here. And I think if we get some of these stories, these use cases, we can then start to craft a reasonable approach to that. So thank you, Jared.
Quickly, I've just had several residents talk about businesses being run out of their neighbors' houses where cars pull up in the morning, park in front all day, they leave, then they come back. So that would be what I would be most important to me.
Councilwoman Bennett?
I agree with everything that's been said. Certainly no hazardous materials, but they can't, we don't need to see what they are storing. It shouldn't be an SUP for a business.
It won't be.
They can't have a trailer back there that they're using to walk in and out of because they're storing, whatever supplies.
That's not
in it.
customary home
materials.
occupation.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Councilman Roman?
Yes, thank you. So I want to make sure that we're talking about the right thing, because I had a resident reached out who said, so I won't be able to work from home anymore. And she does none of the work that we've been talking about, but, and I work from home as well, but nobody would ever know that I'm a financial advisor, because I don't have people come meet me. Even if they did, it wouldn't be on a frequent basis where I'm taking up parking and got people waiting for me and all that other stuff. I meet people in my actual office. And I think at the end of your slides, you had a quote. There you go. It's invisible, right? We're not talking about people who are working from home because as a result of COVID, we realize that we can all work from home very reasonably without really interrupting our neighbors. It just really was for safety, and now it's become for convenience of the workplace. And so we're not talking about those. What we're talking about is those disruptors, people who have a business, who have completely disregarded their neighbors and have just taken over the entire neighborhood. In my district, I've got body shops. I have a drive-through coffee shop. Yes, I do. We have a warehouse that sells kitchen equipment, and those are just the three that I could think of as we were sitting here talking about it. I think that I would strongly support being able to address not only the side effects of home businesses, but also being able to restrict specific occupations. A warehouse, for instance, might just be used for storage, and someone might be coming and picking up items on an infrequent basis. So you wouldn't be able to really notice it, but the fact that that home is being used exclusively and only for a warehouse purpose, that disrupts the neighborhood. It disrupts the purpose of a community. We have commercial areas that are conducive for doing commercial business like that. A residential neighborhood is not for that. And so I want to make sure that we give you and the rest of your code enforcement team the ability to be able to do right by the residents who live in those neighboring communities who have to deal with strange people coming in and out to pick up things from a warehouse or whatever that might be, and address them. So, and I recognize that there's going to be a lot of investigation, so we won't be in a situation where we see someone working on their vehicle. Great point, by the way.
Right.
We certainly have certain protocols. I think one neighbor shared with me that there was, in order to determine that it was a warehouse, she worked with code enforcement to find a translating website that could translate Japanese to read their website where they advertised what they were actually doing and listed a Farmers Branch address, a residential home. And I recognize that there's a lot of homework that is done before you actually say, hey, you're running a business out of your home.
Can be, yeah.
Right? So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. So Jared, I think you've got some feedback to be able to go back and draft some policy for us to take a look at?
Yes, sir.
All righty, great. Thank you. Item A9 is next. I'm going to table that till after regular agenda items, and that will be after J5, because I want to move to executive session. So council may convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to discuss economic development incentives for Project Harbor. We're going to...
You want to get your dinner, bring it in?
Yes. So we're going to break for food, take about 7 minutes, and then please come back here so we can get started, and we'll listen to Allison while we eat.
Yeah, it's on purpose.